Hello, Rich. I see that you're here. How are you?
Doing good, Martin. How about you?
Also good. I'm a bit exhausted
And what you're going to get there is a trusted
because we.
financial partner. So you can do what you do best. Run your business.
Is this your radio?
Sorry about that. I'll turn it off.
Okay. I could hear it. No worries. I'm now in our new Malaysia office right now at this time. Rich, you need to unmute yourself, then I can understand.
You opened up a brick and mortar location?
Yes, yes, in Malaysia.
Ah, okay.
And the idea is to um, provide a hub for German companies to store their stuff when they expand to Asia. I found a very strategic position in the north of Singapore and the Straits of Singapore, yeah, in Malaysia.
So is that
And
a warehouse then or what?
it is a warehouse with a attached office building.
Oh, okay.
And the office building is, I'm currently using the ground floor as an office. It's really
Mhm.
all very makeshift, and the top floor will very soon then be another office floor, and
Yeah.
yeah, and it's a hub. It's 5 minutes away from the regional airport of Johor Bahru, and
Mhm.
it's also 10 minutes away from the next station of the North-South Asia high-speed railroad.
Sounds like a good position.
It, yeah,
Location, excuse me.
you're in 1 hour from Singapore in Kuala Lumpur, which is the capital of Malaysia. You're in less than 1 hour in Singapore,
Mhm.
and Malaysia government does a lot in order to attract companies coming here. So, for example, the warehouse that we have is um, a bond-free, a bonded warehouse, which means you can ship from anywhere in the world to the warehouse, and you can store your goods here in the warehouse, and you don't pay import taxes or levies or whatever. It's free. Only if you export it to Malaysia, which is one step out of the warehouse, do you need to pay all those taxes and those whatever. And companies like Mercedes, they are 200 meters away from here. They opened the Asia spare parts warehouse here. They ship all the spare parts to this place in order to redistribute it to where the spare parts are needed.
So does
And
that mean you already have a contract with them or what?
no. Mercedes is different. I mean, of course, I worked for Mercedes for a very long time. I did all the anti-counterfeiting in the whole of Asia, plus Australia and Israel for Mercedes. And but that is 15 years or 10 years ago, maybe. And so I know all the people and they know me. And but now I'm here. Yeah, maybe there's some more business coming from there. No problem. But it's not my main goal. My main goal is the small and medium-sized enterprises in Germany and the Ride the Wave event in October, which is and then bring in the first 20 to that. I have already 2 sign-ups, and um, yeah, now we are preparing all the material to address the Germans. The situation in Germany is very dire. The entire industry is revenue-wise 20% down in average,
Mm.
Germany-wide,
Well,
20%,
well,
and and that at a margin of maybe 5%, right? And then I talk now more with small and medium-sized enterprise owners, and I'm very surprised when you talk business with them. It's very different from talking about patents. Then suddenly you understand much better what innovation is all about, and it's not about patents. It's about selling. And but the machinery industry was always known to have higher margins of 30%, something like that, right? But then I asked, hey, but if you have a 30% margin, then you can easily cope with a revenue that shrinks by 10%, right? Because of your high margin, you can easily. But then it turns out that from that high margin, they would finance the after sales. The client doesn't pay for after sales support. And then suddenly the margin goes down to 5%.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah. Yeah.
and that's across Germany. And now imagine the overall, you have, let's say 20% less in the entire industry, or 15 or whatever, something like that. But it's more than 10. And if you have a 5% margin, that means that from year one you have make a 5% loss.
Mhm. Mhm.
And now
Yeah.
is a company with, let's say, 150 people. They have a monthly revenue of 300,000, roughly 50 times, but each time 20,000. 50 times 20 is at 50, 20,000. 5 is 100, a million a month. That makes 12 million a year. And then you lose 600,000 in that year. And that's already the salary of the owner.
Yeah.
And that is now in a very general trend in Germany. And yeah, these people have a hard time to survive, only to survive. Hey, Roland, you're also here, right?
Yeah, right. Sorry, I'm a busy face. I have a lot of private issues on my private agenda. So skipped a few times and may skip in the future a few times, but today I made it, just barely made it. Nice to be back.
Okay.
Hi,
Hello.
everybody.
Yes, nice to have you back. And also Michael is here, and also Carl is here. So we are a small round. But Roland, you are in Germany. What can you tell us from there? What I just said. Overall industry revenue 10% down, 20%, something like that.
Well, I don't know the figures that exactly, but some of the news which made the headlines today and yesterday was the result of BMW, which is the German car manufacturer, which until now managed to cope with the crisis best among all those top tier car manufacturers. And they really had to cut back their business expectations, which caused a heavy loss in stock value. So yeah, the crisis is there. But I also hear that car manufacturers are adapting. For example, Mercedes opens up to a different, no, it's not a different field of business. It has been a business all the time, but it grows in importance. Like I said in many previous talks, military defense, this is where lots of German manufacturers focus their attention on right at the moment, because this is where the money is and where the need for products is. Of course, it's not very sustainable. A usual economy should function by simply serving the needs of a working populations and not preparing for war. But this is the way it is right at the moment. So yeah, your insights in the margins of small and medium enterprises, very interesting, Martin. I also hear that was also some very interesting piece of news. The situation is as dire in China as it is in Germany or Europe, because we know, Martin, you many times told us that there are many Chinese car manufacturers, and their situation is also not so brilliant because funding stopped. All these government supports, which kept them alive and allowed them to bring their products to the market. That stopped, and now they have to survive for just bringing the products to the market, and they now focus on the European market. So they have the same problem, vice versa. The German manufacturers have large losses in the Chinese market, and the Chinese manufacturers have the same problem and try to expand to Europe. Yeah, that's it right at the moment.
Okay. Yeah, that's an update that says something about what I hear is also from patent attorneys and suppliers to patent attorneys that revenues are down for the past 6 months, but it started to pick up 2 weeks ago. So, yeah, I mean, I can also confirm that. And maybe you also, Roland, I don't know how much insight you have in how your firm works, but that's so the whole country would see what is going on. It's not so good. I know nothing about China because despite being so close, last time I was there was maybe 5 months ago or 6 months ago, and that was in a very poor province of China, and the second poorest. And my impression was that this is just a normal country, like not first world, but second world definitely. And I don't know how they are doing. Again, I'm now currently sitting in our new Malaysia office, and the airport is 5 minutes away, and you can buy a flight from here to Guangzhou, which is Guangdong, the province that Shenzhen is located in, for less than 100 euros. And it takes you there within 4 hours or 3 hours or something like that. And so my plan is to be more often there, and then I can tell you more. Also, our Christoph Hering, he's here every now and then. He's there in Guangzhou. So, and yeah, but what I can say is that all the big players in Germany, they're now investing in Asia, Southeast Asia especially. I just told you about the new spare part storage here, very near the office of Mercedes, and others that discover that Europe is no longer the center of the world, in very short words. David, you're also here. David Kaloff from New York, right?
Yes, in New York. And I'll tell you, the United States is no longer the center of the world either.
Well, not doing so bad, I would say. At least you own 1/3 of the area of the world when you take South America and Greenland and Canada and Mexico and whatever which belongs to the US.
Better leadership would not hurt. But redirecting German car companies to serve, say, clean tech and healthcare, which have unlimited potential, would not be an easy switch in any way. But there's issues certainly of mobility in a city where you don't necessarily need a car, and you can't, at my age, necessarily balance on a bicycle. There's room for the German car companies to come up with very creative solutions to next generation transportation needs.
Yeah, I mean, there are many things that people can do. The issue is, would they think in that way, or would they just try to escape with what they're currently doing to other countries? And I believe that's easier for most people.
I assume Kodak wants to keep making better film each year, even
Yes.
if no one wants film anymore. And that's what the Clayton Christensen disruption theory that you have drawn attention to. And I'm sure some German companies won't be able to make the switch, and that's tragic. But but the creation of new jobs to serve the needs that are really there, Germany has in the past with, Goethe Institute and technical training and respect for blue collar work that is often lacking in America, and many other smart things that have been done in Germany, shown itself just a tremendous ability to innovate and create jobs and have the middle market companies. I foolishly remain optimistic about Germany.
Yes, sure. Maybe that also what is similar between in the new world. What I can tell you is from the people that I'm meeting currently, many are going into retirement at early age, as young as 57, and the people that are replacing them are less skilled and less qualified. And not only a little bit less skilled and less qualified, but a lot less skilled and less qualified. And by allowing this to happen, the German companies would just lose their knowledge, half their knowledge in a year. And there's also an interesting thing when I played with the Pestel simulators that Rich and I'm programming and using the jobless, how do you say it? Jobless rate in English? I don't know. The
Lose weight?
Unemployment rate.
Unemployment rate is not high, which means that the decrease in business is balanced out by people retiring, either early or normally or whatever, and not getting enough in. And there's a problem, labor shortage in military and medical devices in Germany. So there are people looked for in those two industries, and it's a tough thing. But in general, the number of retirees grows and grows and grows, and the number of unemployed immigrants also grows and grows, and there's no end in sight. And you can hear that there are distribution battles, because now the German government officers launching campaigns saying, emphasizing how important they are for the well-being and the running of the country. That's what I see. So
I have a favor to ask you, Martin. As you know, I am a big admirer of your 4x4 approach.
Okay, thank you.
And I think you need to sit down and create for all of us, perhaps Germany, but perhaps elsewhere, a new 4x4 for a medium or large company facing the early retirement, facing the know-how, trade secrets, skills of 20 and 40 years experience walking out the door, and needing to upskill the next generation. For instance, if you asked me as I'm starting to retire, not to train an AI replacement or an India-China replacement, but a fellow American replacement, maybe I would enjoy that apprenticeship for a year, and there could be a way of paying me for that and upskilling the next generation and so on. But the way you think about it, as shown by your 4x4 approach, would be great stories and examples and sort of an easy chart and checklist that people could follow to solve that problem. Because I stipulate there's a real problem. I think you could help solve it.
Yeah, now you have triggered me, David, because I have two examples here. The first example comes from my own company, and where 4x4 has saved me from creating a huge loss. And I know, I don't know whether you are aware, but I'm into this AI for a very long time. I mean, I don't want to boast, but I started in 1986, and which is 40 years. And I'm also a trained engineer for that. And I wrote AI programs. At that time, we called it neural networks and we used it for controlling devices. And over time, it became large language models and so on and so on and so on. I'm also using it as a patent attorney, and I'm writing patents about AI systems. how to use them and how they're built and how they're improved. So I really do this. And I wrote our own patent drafting robot, which is I call it Invention Harvesting Copilot. And it's based on a Microsoft system, which Microsoft has a very complicated landscape of applications. And we are building you call it a macro, which trains the environment inside a given tenant. A tenant is an environment of a company within the Microsoft environment. And the tenant can use all the tools that are there provided by Microsoft. And we provide a macro that trains those available tools in the tenant to behave like a invention harvester. Someone who asks an inventor about his invention and forces him to speak out some features and how they are linked together and how they work and so on. This thing is very efficient. If you give it to an engineer, then you can reduce the work time spent for an invention disclosure from 4 hours to 30 minutes or 45 minutes if he's only using the microphone. Right? And the invention disclosure that comes out is much better than what we are used to receive before. And we started with a single programmer, actually in New York, no, in Long Island, 3 years ago. And she gave up because of personal issues, problems with the family. Then we went over to a bunch of programmers from somewhere else and from somewhere else. And now we have the third generation of programmers. And still not many sales. There are some sales of this thing, but it's more difficult than thought. And I have repositioned the whole thing 3 times over the past 3 years. And I was now at the point where we are in the, I would say, 4x4 has the idea stage, the conceptual model stage, the prototype stage, and the product stage. And we are now at the final end, the tail end of the prototype. And then suddenly there were difficulties, and those difficulties came from the other 4 dimensions: R&D, FTO, IP protection, and market response. And being in here, I emphasize on R&D and market response, and not so much on FTO and IP protection, says the patent attorney. And then I saw the consequences. Some clients decided to cancel the subscription. And I thought, wow, this program is so good. Why do they do this? And it turned out, ultimately, we have an FTO problem. We could invest more into R&D in order to cover up for what made those clients quit. But ultimately, we have an FTO problem. And the FTO problem was that it was not clear who does what. And who owns that's the IP issue. Who owns the rights to the whole thing? Because we have so many programmers working now on the team already. And most of them are freelancers, because I will not become a software company. I'm a patent attorney, right? And then I sat down and said, now we stop everything. No more investment, and we clarify those things. And now they are asking, why are you doing all this? Do you want to cancel us, or what? Do you want to terminate? I said, no. Just read my little booklet, read it, and I draw them the table. We are here. So, and I put green ticks into the boxes that we had, and I put red crosses into the boxes that we left out. And everybody suddenly saw that they need to contribute to something that is not within their normal job scope. And suddenly they all spoke the same language, and like a miracle, they came up with all the information and all the agreements. They fall into place because everybody would understand what is required in order to behave, to make me spend the money for developing the final product. And when I saw this, I said, wow, this thing really works, even for a patent attorney who does something which is completely out of the normal scope of work. And I also just today had a talk with a very large German industry. So they're publicly listed in the DAX. And I presented this product to head of the patent department who talks with me because I'm a patent attorney and he's also one. And we had a very short discussion, 20 minutes. He saw the value of the product and he has 1,500 engineers under him, 1,500. And the calculation was very easy. He says, okay, each one of those guys has to bring one invention disclosure per year. And if I just cut the 1,500 times 4 hours, which is 6,000 hours, to only 1,000 hours, then he has 5,000 hours available for producing revenues in engineering. And then is a very simple case for them. And that, when I talked with procurement, they wanted to know how much is this and how many messages and tokens will we spend for using the software for this and that and this and that. And I said, hey, you're on the wrong train. You just think about what is the saving of this, and you spend a few thousand euros for your 1,500 engineers, and you save 5,000 engineer hours per year, and each saved engineer hour would cost you 50 cents. Now, and then this falls into place when you speak their language and you bring all those people together speaking the same language. Then this is where the real value comes out. And I believe we need more of such projects. The second example I have is an example that I did together with Rich. He would know about whom I'm talking. I cannot really release the name because it's a client and there's a confidentiality here.
Sure.
But that device that they are planning to build, and they're doing this already for 3 years, right? And they're now, after 3 years, I would say, coming close to the prototype, technology readiness level 7 or so, after 3 years only. But now I tell them, look, you have ticks here in the 4x4 matrix. You can have green ticks here, 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 and you have red crosses here, here, and here. So why don't we just do the category with the most red crosses, which is FTO? And out of the FTO comes information about the direct competitors. And out of that information comes information about the better unique sales proposition. And now they are very close to onboard their first alpha customers and give them the device for a very good price. And all this business strategy suddenly becomes something that is tangible and people can talk about. And it's a very simple thing. So, yeah, so once those two products are on the market and fully developed, then I can publish the first successes and then put in testimonials how good it is. Unfortunately, we are very early, or maybe fortunately you are already here, because then you can see and you hear from the horse's mouth how things are developing.
And I want to be clear, Martin, that I'm asking you as the horse to develop an entirely new product, not a patent drafting product, but an internal know-how transfer product. Because I think the problem you identified a few minutes ago is a big, serious one, and a suitable project could change the world for the better and maybe make you some money along the way.
The money making comes automatically because people are used to pay for a patent attorney. That's the lucky side of our profession, I would say. So nobody ever asks about an invoice that I'm sending because it always comes in with some value. That's why I must say I had a very lucky life, because I just dropped into that niche without knowing it, and then it turned out to be, you won't become rich as a patent attorney. But it makes you a very decent living. And
it's actually because you're a weightlifter, not the patent attorney.
Yeah, sure, but somehow I must pay for my hobbies, right? So, yeah, and the thing is, the same could also, I believe that you could use the 4x4 principle also for the idea of transfer innovation within a company, Rich, because this is your field. You say, if a company buys know-how from another company, so why do you use that know-how only in one department when you have so many? that could also use it. And the idea should be, if you put it in the Ansoff matrix, is the rolling out a new idea within the company, is this not some sort of market development?
Is that a question or a statement?
It's a question because I'm unsure. Is it, or is it
Yeah.
diversity from within the company? There's a guy who says, okay, I do merger and acquisition, and the guy would probably be in a C-level, CEO or whatever. And let's say they have 5 or 6 divisions with 1,500 people each, or 6,000, I don't know, but something like that. And then one division decides, oh, we need this new technology. Is a laser-bound marking system for this and that, and it helps us. And then the CEO should make sure that the whole acquisition would be applied to all divisions in his company in order to make it more efficient, because that would create a network effect, right? Because you have more people using it, then you get more ideas out of it for what you can use it more. Then the products follow from that, and so network effects are very important. But shouldn't a transfer innovation project not also come with some sort of technology readiness level for each division and what needs to be done?
Very much so. That's one of the key things that, I mean, as you go through the technology portfolio of the target company, you're assessing is the TRL, for the potential technologies that you would be buying and acquiring in the purchase, and what are those shortcomings, the most important aspect of that, because then you're going to need to invest beyond that. And does the target company already know how to solve that shortage of capability? Do they have a target in mind that they were going to pursue as far as an acquisition, or do they have a license agreement that's pending? How will they solve that issue? So but what you described is very much transfer innovation. Sure.
Yes, I believe each merger and acquisition project should come with a plan to roll out this invention to the entire company, or this technology, right?
Yeah. So often, it's in the pre-merger and acquisition discussions, the discovery stage, it's called. You're going to uncover those and say, hey, this is just what we thought. This is a very juicy technology that we can acquire and through this acquisition, and we can leverage in the ABC division, right?
Yes.
Or group of the company, what have you. And sometimes that's where it stops, right? It doesn't continue on to say, okay, how do we fan this out across all the other groups of the company or divisions of the company? Now, in some cases it does. It depends on, the absorptive capacity of the company and of the acquirer, and have they done this before? Do they have that skill set? And is that part of their M&A strategy and plan? So the more sophisticated companies and the larger the company, there's some of that already baked in. But for the small, medium-sized companies, they're not thinking like that, often.
Of course not. Yeah. Of course not. The small and medium-sized, they don't have a transfer innovation problem. But and I'm just starting from where David started to talk. So, and now I give you a very specific example from my own technical area of control theory. currently there are new ways to use AI for controlling processes, chemical processes. And the new way is you use a neural network and you pair it with a system that simulates what is going on in the underlying system. So it's some call it Kalman filter, and there are other expressions
Digital
for it.
twin?
Yes, that digital twin sounds like is a twin. Yes, you pair a neural network with a traditional control mechanism, and you control the neural network is trained on available measurement data from the system, and the digital twin would be something that bases on a simple or on a simulation on something that you predict based on formulas. It can be sophisticated or very easy, but it's based on something that is a model of the system that is controlled. And what I find is that there's a third system that decides which one of the systems would prevail, and that depends very much on the overall state of the system. And when that system or that knowledge, how to control such systems, can apply to chemical plants, can be applied to fans, electrical fans, right? For sure, it can be applied to almost anything. And if a large company buys this, then there should also be a plan on how to apply that technology of a digital twin to all areas, to all divisions of the company. I've never looked at a company like that before, so I rely heavily on what I hear from here. And the people who worked in large companies are mostly here are Michael and also Rich. And what I learned from being here for so many years is that very often the initiative to do a merger comes from the division and not so much from the C-level. And then it's picked up as a good idea or something that would be promoted. And that plan, if it's taken up, should automatically come with a plan on how to roll out the same invention to others. But it might be so that it is difficult because it's a challenge. It's not like you take the old control system out and plug the new one in. You connect the same 4 wires, and then the thing would work better and it's more simple or whatever. You need to do some R&D and also find out whether there are people out there who are willing to pay for that. My impression is that these big companies are very often not prepared for that. And I believe that there should be a simple structure that would help to guide each division. Head is given a task. Hey, we have this merger. There's this technology. We expect you now to come up within a year with a potential product for which you find buyers. And the USP, the unique sales proposal, would be based on what the new merged-in technology can provide. And my question here, my honest question is this a reasonable way to argue, or is this very far-fetched?
Hey, Martin. Michael
Yes.
here.
I hear your voice.
Yeah, so I think in terms of the realm of pre and post merger strategy, okay, so definitely before a giant merger or even medium-sized companies, there's typically months of planning going into what Rich would call transfer innovation or synergy. And the synergy can be market or technology or product. So both companies are sitting there with their secret sauces of their proprietary technologies that they bring to the table when they get married. I think back of some giant deals that I've been involved in my 50 years of my career. When GE bought RCA, when Carrier was acquired by United Technologies and how it fit with Otis, when United Technologies bought Hamilton Sundstrand, when Raytheon then bought United Technologies Aerospace, when ABB bought Combustion Engineering, and I went to work for ABB to integrate that acquisition, that was nuclear power driven. So each of the cases that I just mentioned have thousands of product market subsegments that are important. And in some cases, the big one, when Carrier was acquired by United Technologies, the big one was the synergy between Otis Elevator and Carrier having maybe 30% of the budget of a high-rise building in terms of elevators and air conditioning. So that was one match made in heaven that people talked about for 50 years before United Technologies finally realized that the Carrier fit really well with Otis. Not so much technology. I mean, there's motors on both and this and that, but it was a marketing play, not a technology or transfer innovation, per Rich's comment. But the other examples, when ABB got Combustion Engineering, there was controls businesses of Combustion Engineering that fit with what ABB was doing with robots and other industrial products. When GE bought RCA, I mean, that one, for those of us who are old enough, and maybe I'm the only one in the room old enough to have been involved in that deal, but it was enormous, so they got radar from RCA, they got television from the Sarnoff Labs in Princeton, and all of a sudden GE was in the radar business and the television business. So, some of these mergers and even medium-sized companies, Rich and I were involved with Parker Hannifin buying CompuMotor. And of course, Rich was 30 times bigger than $100 million at CompuMotor. But even there, there were probably 20 or 30 product synergy areas. And the key is, before you sign the deal, you better examine the synergy and how that creates value for customers and shareholders, and how it beats competitors. So those
Yes.
are some of the comments. Those are some of the comments
yeah.
I'll share.
Yes, Michael, if I may comment, you always come from the other side, the very strategic one, very from a bird's view. Division head of a company, with 5 divisions. Company together, 20,000 people. Each division has 4,000 people. You're making this and that and this and that and this and that and this and that. And then suddenly one division comes up with a technology that fits into what they're doing. And they're purchasing, merging with that company, trying to absorb all that knowledge and all the know-how and all the new skills and whatever. And then the other 4 or 3 divisions, they're sitting there and watching and seeing, oh, that's interesting, but what they're doing, but we have our own problems. So what if the C-level of the company would then give each head of the other divisions a homework for 1 year? Please bring me a product that uses the new technology that we brought in, and prove to me that would generate sales. And I don't think that this is currently done. While, as according to Rich, with the transfer innovation idea, it should be done like that, right, Rich?
Yeah. Yes. But it is done. I mean, there's companies doing that, but there's not enough of that. Let's put it that way, right?
Yeah, of course.
And to your point, I mean, basically when you sort of map, a portfolio, for the existing company and the target company or the acquiring company, and you map those 2 portfolios, you're looking at, potential new product concepts. You're looking at next generation products, and you're looking to, in addition to product families, or you're looking for, derivatives and enhancements, to existing products, right? So the degree of change in the product is either less or more, from that spectrum that I just gave you.
Yeah.
And then, as you look across those, the other changes, you have, core process changes. You have next generation processes that you need. You have a single department upgrade, to your point, right? And, is there some incremental change in that? So there's the other spectrum, going across it.
Yeah.
And then you need to map those, technologies and or products across that. And so that you understand, where's some alignment. And, can you derive some derivative projects, some platform projects, and some breakthrough projects,
Okay.
out of
But,
that matrix that you build, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's the approach that should be taken. Now, there's not a lot of education that's given on that, right? And that's where, transfer innovation comes from.
yes.
Is that, basically is to enhance that knowledge base, of people, and, allow them to learn to leverage that, and
Yes.
to look for, a solution for, building, that absorptive capacity within your own organization, to be able to move the company forward in an innovative light, right? If you would.
Yep.
Hey, Rich,
Please.
I want to
Yes.
mention one. I hope Roland is still here. Hey, Roland, are you still on board?
I'm on board, yeah.
Okay, the one I want to mention, Roland, is when Merck Life Sciences and Merck Pharmaceutical bought Millipore. So in the world of fine filtration, this is, analytical discs for membranes and all of Millipore's businesses that are mostly medical and pharmaceutical. So here you got a giant pharmaceutical company kind of backward integrating, buying one of their suppliers, but on technology, not too many pharmaceutical companies diversified into submicron filtration, even though it's critical for parenteral solutions and IV sets and blood filters and 20 or 30 technologies. But Merck saw the wisdom of the technology play of acquiring Millipore. And Millipore is one of the world leaders, along with Pall Corporation, in submicron filtration for pharmaceutical and medical. So the transfer innovation, to use Rich's term, and for you, Martin, the synergy, the possibilities of pharmaceutical companies getting together with filtration companies, it was a match made in heaven. And for 50 years, people wondered, why did pharmaceutical companies like Baxter or Ciba Geigy or Roche, why haven't they taken a step to backward integrate? Because the technologies are as simple as nuts and bolts in the fastener industry. It was a match made in heaven. And any comment, Roland, I'd appreciate it, because on technology, people in the pharmaceutical industry typically don't think that way. And people in the filtration industry sometimes don't want to be swallowed up by a giant pharmaceutical company. But however they got together, I don't know if it was an unfriendly takeover and a stock fight, or I guess, Millipore was a public company, but Merck just made an offer that Millipore couldn't refuse.
Okay. Please allow me some comments both on you, Michael, and also Rich. I would like to suggest that you step into the boots of a guy on the ground. So imagine you are a division head, or even I don't know, what is the title? Vice president, very likely, I would say. You have 4,000 people under you, and you hear that another vice president has purchased technology in the form of a company, and the investment was not small. It was not marginal. It was substantive, and you were not so much involved because that technology doesn't really apply to your own products. But according to the transfer innovation definition, a company should, when a large company should, when one division takes up such a venture, the other divisions shouldn't stand at the sidelines, but they should rather also develop knowledge with that, so that network effects would multiply and benefit the company. And I'm not really sure about, but this today is the first time I understand that is that all the examples that you mentioned, Michael, had such networks effect in place, because otherwise it would not be such a success. So for some reason, the entire company benefited from that. And it's not because the choice was so wise, but I have the hypothesis that the people in charge were so wise to look around for what they could use this thing as well. And if you put the two things together, 1 + 1, then the outcome would be, if you do a merger, here's a booklet, read this, follow the recipe, and the recipe would touch those 4 different legal areas, I would say, or commercial areas, and then you define yourself on how granular you want your technology readiness level, the development. And I've selected 4 stages.
So,
yeah.
So Martin, to answer your question, one of the hypotheses that I would present to you in your example is that you have this pharmaceutical company that recognizes that they have a shortfall in their absorptive capacity, understanding filtration.
Yes.
And they say, it's such a critical underlying technology for the future of pharmaceuticals, right?
Yes.
That we understand it and have that as a captive supply source, plus the know-how of manufacturing those filters, right?
Yes.
And what we can bring is the knowledge of pharmaceuticals and the size of the molecules and the size of all the ingredients, if you would, and the processing and the cleanliness levels that are required. And Millipore, in this case, could bring not only the manufacturing of the proper filtration, but the know-how of making that filter be able to provide that type of cleanliness, if you would, to the system, right? Along with all the other underlying attributes of the sciences behind filtration.
Yes.
And, so that's absorptive capacity, right? And as you bolt those two together, now you have a whole nother level of capability within your firm.
Yes.
Of understanding how those two pieces align and complement one another. And in another case, I've got several documents that I've put together on transfer innovation and looking at, the in technology and systems, when they move from a target to the acquirer, right? And one of these views is looking at the project type, and then looking at the swim lane of the acquiring company and the target company, because you need to understand which swim lane, and I'll define that in a moment, that those projects reside in. And, those are then broken out by, derivative projects, platform projects, breakthrough projects, R&D projects, and then alliances and strategic partnerships, right? And, for R&D and engineering, if you look at that swim lane across those particular project types, and you were to map those from, the target company, the acquirer would map those against that matrix again, and then understand that, okay, we've got 3 projects, one in derivative projects that the target company has, one in platform projects, and one in research and development projects that we could then put into transfer innovation, and through the center of excellence that we would create. And its center of excellence becomes the underlying control body for the company to fan that out across the different groups or divisions of the acquirer. And the acquirer would then have those groups, send a team, if you would, to that center of excellence to understand, what those technologies are and the grouping of those technologies, and potentially identify, hey, there's one project there that's in that derivative project pool. that is in their R&D area that we can leverage, right? And other groups or divisions would do the same thing, again, depending on the size of the company that you're talking about.
And now we have, Rich, we have a very, when I heard you speaking and Michael speaking, that reminded me very much of when I was, I mean, I don't know whether I told you, I was first 2 years in the German army, and then I left and I joined the Canadian army. And what struck me most was, I mean, in the Canadian army, I was more a specialist in other, in the line of command. But what struck me most is that in Canada, the whole organization was more order type tactics. I'm so low ranking in military that I was only I only could touch tactical stuff, and I very seldom saw strategic stuff. But what struck me most is that even in the lowest ranks in the German military, you get some Auftragstaktik, mission type tactics orders, which they tell you, go and achieve this, and you have, these are your resources, and then organize yourself and come back and report the success. That's a typical format of a German military order to a leader, and any leader. It starts even if you're leading a three guys deployment, which is called Trupp in German. I don't know what you say in English. And the Canadians, they had the order type tactics. They told almost everyone what to do at what time and how. And it all relies on the supreme leader to produce the success. And when I look at innovation, I don't know, maybe it's natural because I'm a German and my family history for 500 years was military, but whenever I give an order, I use the German system of giving a mission type tactics order. And when I hear what Michael and you, Rich, how you are talking about the very clear goal of, to me, it sounds almost like a no-brainer. If you purchase something, you don't want to improve just one of your divisions. You wanted to have it used in all divisions for many reasons. And what I see is that you are trying, and David, also your question directs into that sense, that you're looking for some I don't know, SOP or whatever to how to do this. And I'm much more into the way of that was I'm suggesting all the time since we started talk about this. Why not telling each division head, look, we have bought this company, it has this technology, and we give you now a mission type tactical order. You have now 1 year. Please show me a product that sells using that technology as a part of the reason why it's better than, I know, the unique. Why are we unique in our sales proposition? Well,
So,
yeah,
Martin, I don't disagree with you, but what I'm saying
Go ahead,
is,
David.
you tell a kid, do this mission, a little bit of guidance, like 4x4 is guidance along the way of how, not necessarily step-by-step exact actions, but how to think about that in a successful way helps. So
yeah,
you don't want to
so
just say
that's,
your mission is make this merger succeed. That's a mission.
yeah, not only make the merger succeed, that's not enough.
Exactly.
Create
Martin,
extra value.
Martin, one other comment on the GE RCA deal. GE acquired Intersil for semiconductors, but it was a tiny bolt-on compared to what they got from RCA. So in addition to television technology and radar, I remember very, very well when Reginald Jones at GE laid out the deal. I sat in on a presentation and it was amazing. This was before Jack Welch, so I'm showing my age. But the idea of what RCA brought in semiconductor knowledge all of a sudden was a whole new feather in GE's hat. And
Yes, Michael,
Yeah,
and
I
I agree
mean,
with you,
the
but
strategy was enormous.
you're speaking from a general's point of view and not from the captain and major.
Well, the people making chips at RCA all of a sudden had a new boss and it was called General Electric, you know?
That's not the point. The point is that RCA was bought by General Electric. Then the head of General Electric has how many people? 250,000? I don't know. Maybe. So,
They're 200, they're 200 billion in sales. I mean, they're still huge.
yeah, whatever. Let's say 250,000 people, or maybe 400. I don't know, something like that. And those people group into 15 divisions. So he bought RCA, which is a semiconductor company, and they made some stuff with one or two division. The question is now this is um, this is the theory. From minute one, you what General Electric
You're breaking up, Martin. We can't
You're
hear you.
breaking up, Martin.
nothing to do with semiconductors. Maybe the gas turbines, or I don't know, or maybe they made some water pumps. I think now the water pump division head, a very small division, only 500 people, but it's a division because otherwise it doesn't fit into the whatever. And he gets now the mission type order. Hey, we have here this semiconductor thingy. I don't even understand how it works because I'm not a physicist. I'm a mechanical engineer, classic. But I tell you now, water pump guy, find out what new product you can create using that technology that gives us a unique angle, USP. That's how I would word this, and that should sit in every C-level head whenever they talk about merger or acquisition. That this
Exactly.
should, right? That
Yeah,
is the
exactly.
mission type.
Martin, you're exactly right, Martin. One area of synergy was Brainy Motors. So RCA brought semiconductor technology to the motor division at GE that previously only made synchronous and induction. And all of a sudden they had the technology to put chips into motor control. So your comment about, you know, controllers. So all of a sudden GE was in a much higher
Yeah.
set of categories in the electric motor business because of
Yes.
RCA.
We are at the end of the hour already, but I just wanted to add something. I'm a trained car mechanic, German car mechanic, right? And I remember I bought a car, a used car, Fiat, in the year of 1986. And it was a Fiat. And it had the ignitions with the that's little switch that sits on a rod that rotates and has 4 cylinders, and for 4 cylinders for 4 humps. And it comes.
They're called breaker points, Martin. Breaker
Okay,
points.
thanks for helping. And those breaker points, breakers, they always burn out because there's a 12-volt voltage running through them, the ignition coil, triggering the ignition coil. And I got a used Fiat converted by a very young chap, and he replaced the 12 volt over the breaking point switch with a low voltage of 1.5 volt, triggering a very large transistor, who then triggered the ignition coil. And I've seen at age 19 an electronic ignition. And I will never forget that moment when I realized how useful semiconductors can be for engines, for the old ones, right? When we work with 12 volts only and high voltage over the spark plugs and so on. That was really a game changer for my entire life, And
Oh, hey, Martin, in 1972, I was a young research engineer at Union Oil, and my boss came in with a schematic for transistorized ignition. 1972. So it might have been the same time frame that you're talking about. And all cars in the world had breaker points until around that time frame when transistors went into ignition.
Okay, we are at the end. I really love this. Can we please develop this more? Because I believe this is really a niche. No, and those large companies and multinationals, they have the money to pay us for what we know. And I believe we should focus on Rich's idea of transfer innovation and promote that one with a toolbox that is useful for large companies. And Rich, you will have to write the book.
And Martin, if you were a doctor, you would specialize in diseases of the rich.
Bleeding necks. I prefer bleeding necks. That's my favorite.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Thank you all. See you
Okay.
next week. Goodbye. Thanks,
Okay.
David,
See
for
you.
joining us. Bye-bye. Bye.
See you
Bye,
guys.
Thank you,
everybody.
Rich.
Take care.
Bye,
Thank you,
everybody.
Michael.
Yep.
Thank you, Roland. Bye-bye. Thank
See
you,
ya.
Carl.
Bye.
See you again. Bye-bye. Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Take care.